Welcome back to the deep dive. Today we are really getting into it, immersing ourselves in, well, it's a story of corporate warfare, family identity crises, and, yeah, believe it or not, a bugged ink pen that basically took down a massive enterprise.
We're using sources that detail this huge power shift at Demera Enterprises,
Right.
EE. And like you said, this is way less about, boring quarterly report
Oh, definitely.
and much more about some really high stakes personal betrayal.
Absolutely. So our mission today really is to unpack the ruthless efficiency with which Tony Demera, or the man claiming to be Tony Demera, managed to claw back his family's empire.
Yeah, and this deep dive has to dissect how securing that win was, like immediately followed by this just shocking, frankly, morally bankrupt betrayal against his own co-conspirator, Gabi Hernandez.
And what makes the story just so compelling for you, the listener, is that central consequence of all that ruthlessness, which is the widespread speculation that the guy steering the ship isn't actually the Tony we think we know.
Right, not the beloved, maybe slightly aloof Tony.
Yeah. But maybe, just maybe, it's his notoriously wicked twin, Andre Demera, operating under the radar because everyone thinks he's long dead.
And we're definitely going to spend some significant time on the specific methods Gabi used for her corporate espionage. I mean, planting bugs.
Oh, yeah.
And then that unforgivable final move where Tony just, poof, discarded her. And, of course, the revenge plot that's brewing now, which, honestly, it promises to rip the whole corporate veil right off this identity deception.
Okay, let's unpack this monumental shift then, starting with Section 1, the drive to reclaim Demera Enterprises. Now, the sources really point out that Tony Demera, who we usually think of as this world-traveling, wine-loving philanthropist, he suddenly got this intense, almost, bizarre fixation on getting back his dad, Stefano's business, DE.
And it's so vital to note just how out of character this corporate hunger really is for Tony. I mean, for years, his whole thing, his MO has been art history, adventures with Anna, his wife, and generally just staying clear of the toxic family politics that, consumed his father. His involvement with DE, usually pretty limited, like advisory stuff, or try not to get arrested, frankly.
That's the key context, isn't it?
Yeah.
Suddenly, he just ditches this comfortable, globe-trotting life to jump headfirst into this incredibly messy corporate fight. With the Kyriakis family, no less.
And the determination was apparently so intense, sources say he actually shocked his own siblings, vowing to get DE back no matter what it took.
Wow.
Yeah. And this sudden drive, it came at a time when the usual Demera, let's call it the corporate war machine, was kind of depleted.
Yeah.
The sources lay out pretty clearly why he needed outside help.
Right, like Chad Demera.
Chad wanted nothing to do with it. He'd sort of chosen a life away from all that Demera darkness. And then Kristen Demera, well, she was completely wrapped up in her own significant personal and legal problems.
Big time.
Yeah.
And maybe the most telling part is EJ Demera, the guy you'd normally expect to be leading this kind of charge, the corporate shark. He was distracted, caught up in personal stuff, girlfriend, son issues, plus this heavy focus on buying up the hospital, which actually we should definitely talk about later because that might connect back to Tony's sudden interest here.
Good point.
The main thing is the usual Demera players, they were all sidelined, neutralized, leaving this power vacuum.
Exactly. So Tony turns to Gabi Hernandez, and this wasn't just like a random pick out of a hat. Gabi has a deep history with the company. She knows it inside out.
And she was eager to help, wasn't she? But her reasons weren't exactly altruistic or even just about money. It felt deeply personal for her.
Oh, completely personal. You have to understand her stake in this. She'd run DE pretty successfully before alongside her ex-husband, Stefan, right? Until that whole notorious incident where Vivian Almain basically hijacked Stefan.
Oh, God, yeah. Vivian. That whole saga. It's like a perfect storm of Demera corporate chaos, isn't it? Which probably explains why Gabi was so determined.
Exactly. Vivian, being Vivian, she forged divorce papers,
Right.
then basically shipped Stefan off to Alemania. That classic Demera hiding spot where they cook up all their nefarious schemes.
Right.
So for Gabi, helping Tony get DE back, it was like reclaiming her own career path, the one that got violently thrown off track by external family interference. She saw herself as the rightful co-CEO, I think.
Okay, that makes sense. But given her history, all the betrayals, she must have approached this alliance pretty cautiously.
Extremely cautiously. The deal was very transactional, very clear-cut. But Gabi, she demanded incredibly high stakes.
What was the explicit exchange then?
Okay, so Gabi agreed to orchestrate the whole corporate takeover,
Yeah.
using her, unique access and skills. But in return, she wanted two very specific things. First, guaranteed control over her own fashion line, Gabi Cheek, which is pretty successful.
So,
And second, and this was really critical for her ambition, maybe her ego too, the prestigious CEO title at Demera Enterprises itself.
okay, and here's where you see Gabi's, like, street smarts maybe clashing with a bit of political naivete, because she knew the Demaras couldn't be trusted, right?
Right.
So she insisted on getting that promise, the CEO job promise, in writing. And Tony actually complied. He signed what looked like a proper, legally binding contract.
But, and this is a big but, the sources flagged this moment immediately. They questioned right away if that contract was even valid, wondering if it was worth the paper it was written on. That instant skepticism, it tells you something. Either Gabi made a huge tactical mistake just trusting the paper, or maybe Tony's whole demeanor, that intense focus, that unnatural calm had already suggested he was planning a double cross. It really sets up the shaky ground their alliance was built on right from the moment he signed.
Yeah, it really does. It sets the stage perfectly for Section 2, Gabi's methods of corporate espionage, which honestly sound like they're straight out of a spy movie.
Totally. Gabi knew a straight-up legal fight would take forever, probably wouldn't work anyway. So she went for this high-risk, kind of multi-pronged strategy to get the dirt and get it fast.
How did she approach it?
Well, she understood the quickest way into the Kyriakis brothers' defenses, their weak spots, was through their personal lives. So she started cultivating personal connections. She managed to get close to Xander Cook,
Okay.
but the sources really emphasized she became even closer to Philip Kyriakis.
And by even closer, we're talking what exactly?
We mean she started a relationship with him, described as something more than a one-night stand. It involved her spending the night in Philip's bed.
Wow, that's ruthless. Using a deep emotional, even physical connection just as a way to get corporate information.
It's incredibly ruthless. The personal cost must have been immense. But for Gabi, the information was the absolute priority.
Yeah.
She needed leverage.
Okay, so that's the personal infiltration. But she also tried a more legitimate route first, didn't she?
She did, yeah. And that's a crucial detail people sometimes overlook. She hired a real private investigator, Steve Johnson, to do a formal official investigation into the legality of how Titan took over parts of DE.
Right, that would have given their claims some serious external validation.
An audit trail.
Exactly. But here is the massive red flag. The first real sign that Tony was already playing a totally separate, much darker game.
What happened?
Unbeknownst to Gabi, Tony secretly went to Steve Johnson and told him to pull the plug on that official investigation. Just shut it down.
Whoa, okay. That really points towards the identity crisis theory, doesn't it?
It absolutely does. The real Tony Demera, the philanthropist. He might have actually welcomed a clean legal path. But the man Gabi was dealing with, he immediately torpedoed the legitimate investigation.
Why?
It suggests he wasn't interested in just a clean win. He wanted total control, maybe wanted to eliminate potential witnesses or paper trails, which sounds a lot more like Andre's manipulative style, right?
Right.
Prioritizing his goal above everything, including alliances. Okay, so the official investigation gets shut down behind her back. Gabi's undeterred, though.
Not at all. She just shifted gears, took matters entirely into her own hands,
Yeah.
and this led directly to the breakthrough discovery, the thing that cracked the whole case open.
What did she do? The spy movie stuff.
Pretty much. She used her access. Remember, she was close to Philip now to get into the shared office of Xander and Philip, and then she pulled off a classic move, planted a bugged ink pen, a listening device, right there in their workspace.
A bugged pen. Seriously, that feels almost cliche, but...
But it worked. The sources confirm she hit pay dirt almost immediately.
Okay, hang on. The audacity of a bugged pen. It's almost funny. But what did it actually capture? What was so critical on that recording?
That little bug captured audio evidence of Xander and Philip talking, specifically talking about the fraudulent forged letter, the one supposedly written by Victor Kyriakis, the late patriarch.
Ah, the letter that was the basis for their claim to Titan.
Which they then merged with DE. Exactly that letter. And the audio, apparently, recorded them discussing the forgery in painstaking, totally incriminating detail. They basically confessed on tape.
Wow. Okay, so that audio evidence, that was the smoking gun.
Absolutely. Its value was just immense. It gave Tony the instant, undeniable leverage he needed. With that tape, he could threaten this massive, crippling lawsuit.
And that lawsuit threat, it could achieve multiple things at once, right? Devastating things.
Oh, yeah. First and foremost, a suit based on documented fraud. It would completely blow apart the Titan-Demera merger. That was the main goal, obviously.
Right.
Second, it would publicly humiliate Xander and Philip. Exposed their methods, questioned their control over their inheritance, total reputation damage.
And third, what about the legal side for them personally?
Well, for Philip, the consequences were immediate and potentially catastrophic. He was looking at possible serious fraud charges because of that forged document.
Oh,
And because their schemes were all tangled up, the sources say the threat created this whole house of cards effect. If one thing fell, everything fell.
did it affect Xander too?
Yeah, the threat extended to Xander as well. Because of his, let's say, violent history and some past shady dealings connected to their takeover efforts, he could also potentially face assault charges linked to it all.
So Tony basically held the key to sending both Kyriakis brothers to prison.
Essentially, yes.
Yeah.
Ensuring they would fold immediately to protect their freedom, their reputations, everything. Gabi, through that pen, delivered the entire kingdom right into Tony's lap.
Which brings us neatly into Section 3. Tony gets the intel, leverages it brilliantly, achieves this swift victory, but then comes the really telling part. His cruel mockery of the Kyriakis legacy.
Right. Tony didn't just take the win. He used Gabi's intel to threaten the brothers, and initially he wasn't just demanding DE back. He wanted Titan, too.
He wanted the whole thing.
Everything. Total, absolute corporate domination in Salem. That was his opening bid.
But the Kyriakis family, they wouldn't just roll over on Titan, surely. Especially Maggie, protecting Victor's legacy.
No, they pushed back hard. Xander, Philip, and especially Maggie Horton Kyriakis, the matriarch, they absolutely refused to give up Victor's life's work, Titan, without a serious fight. Maggie's commitment to protecting that legacy was the immediate roadblock for Tony.
So what happened? Did Tony back down?
He did, eventually. Showing some strategic calculation, or maybe just realizing fighting for Titan would take too long and distract from securing DE, he finally conceded the demand for Titan.
So he got his main prize.
He got his primary objective, Demera Enterprises back, fully leveraging Gabi's hard-won, ethically questionable evidence.
Victory secured, but he couldn't just leave it there, could he? This is where the identity speculation really ramps up again. The sources detail Tony's incredibly cruel, calculated mockery of the Kyriakis family and their company afterwards.
Oh, his gloating was pure psychological warfare. It was brutal. He asserted that Titan, now stripped of the Demera assets and run by Philip and Xander, was basically beyond hope.
Ouch.
Yeah. He predicted it would quickly go down the drain, and then he added he'd eventually buy it back for pennies on the dollar.
Wow. That level of public, just cold-blooded contempt for a defeated rival. It feels very characteristic of a certain kind of Demera ruthlessness, doesn't it? Not necessarily Tony's usual vibe.
Exactly. It begs the question, why the obsession with getting DE, only to immediately trash-talk the competition? Unless it's about sheer power or something else.
Which brings us back to that earlier speculation. Tony's motive might go beyond just family pride, right? There's this potential hidden agenda maybe connected to E.J. Demera.
The sources definitely suggest a highly strategic connection. That Tony's corporate grab might be part of a larger divide-and-conquer strategy that the twins or brothers, if it really is Tony, are running together.
Tell us more about that connection. We know E.J. was focused on buying the hospital, setting up some kind of sketchy secret lab there. How does Tony getting control of DE fit with E.J.'s clandestine plans?
Well, think about what Demera Enterprises represents. Under Stefano's long reign, it built up these vast scientific and technological resources, R&D facilities, advanced computing power, specialized personnel.
Okay, right, the infrastructure.
Exactly. EJ's secret lab, whatever it's for, it's probably nothing good. It would need significant corporate backing. Resources, potentially illicit funding streams, things that DE, under the right management, could provide easily and discreetly.
Ah. So, by Tony, or more likely, Andre securing DE, they gain immediate, almost untraceable control over the corporate structure needed to support whatever dark science EJ is cooking up at the hospital.
Precisely. It reframes Tony's sudden, very out-of-character power grab. It wasn't just about the Demera name. It was about acquiring specific assets needed for a much larger and probably far more sinister collaborative Demera plan.
That really explains the ruthless efficiency, doesn't it? And the complete lack of concern for collateral damage, like Gabi.
It connects his corporate victory directly to a practical need for specific resources. Makes the whole thing seem less like pride and more like a calculated step.
And the moment Tony secured the company, boom, the moral compass, the corporate compass, whatever you want to call it, just completely shattered. Which takes us into Section 4. The betrayal and the identity crisis. This is the moment that just crushed Gabi and basically confirmed everyone's worst suspicions about the man she'd helped.
And Tony executed this betrayal with, Lightning speed. Right after the ink was dry on the DE deal, he was already preparing to dump Gabi and bring in her replacement,
And the replacement was?
his own nephew, Theo Carver. Tony invited Theo back to Salem, supposedly for some high-tech project at Demira Enterprises.
Theo, who we know is genuinely talented, a computer whiz, right? So from Theo's point of view, this probably looks like a great opportunity from his uncle.
Exactly. Theo soon announces his plan. He's taking a job at Demira Enterprises. But for his father, former Mayor Abe Carver, this isn't an opportunity. It's a disaster waiting to happen, a potential family tragedy repeating itself.
The sources really emphasize Abe's reaction, don't they? His fury, his opposition.
Oh, absolutely. Abe explicitly forbids Theo from working for DE. He says, emphatically, that Theo's late mother, Lexi Carver, would agree with him. And this isn't just, typical parental worry. It's rooted in deep, profound trauma directly linked to the Demira Corporation.
We really need to give that context because it's crucial to understanding just how badly Tony or Andre is exploiting Theo here. What happened back in 2017?
Well, Theo got tangled up in the Demira world, specifically involving some shady dealings, some hacking stuff that Kate Roberts actually instructed him on.
Right. And it ended badly.
It ended devastatingly. Theo was shot by J.J. Devereaux during a chase related to that hacking. The sources confirm this incident nearly killed him.
God.
And the consequences of the injury, they were permanent, required extensive recovery, caused lasting neurological or maybe physical damage. So for Abe, seeing Theo lured back into that same Demira web, it's not an opportunity. It's an unforgivable exploitation of his son, who has already suffered so much for that family name.
And Abe's desperate warnings are just completely ignored by the man who's supposed to be Theo's loving uncle. Tony's focus is purely corporate, entirely cold-hearted.
Utterly. He summons Gabi to the mansion just to deliver the news personally, face to face.
What does he say?
Basically, her services are no longer needed. Just like that. Tony is tossing Gabi to the curb in the most brutal way possible, despite the fact, which everyone knows and the sources explicitly state, that he wouldn't have DE back without her intel, without her compromising herself with Philip.
And the final insult.
The crowning insult, yeah. Tony is making room for Theo in the CEO job, the exact prestigious position that Gabi was promised in writing just weeks before.
The sheer transactional cruelty of that move, it's just breathtaking. And it really pushes that identity crisis theory from, plausible speculation to almost certain truth, doesn't it?
This betrayal is the central piece of non-corporate evidence pointing straight at Andre Demira, because as we established, running this business, it has never been Tony's MO.
Right. The real Tony is the quiet one, the world-traveling philanthropist who loves adventuring with his beloved wife, Anna.
Exactly. But the man Gabi dealt with, the one who ruthlessly fires a key partner, undermines investigations, sneers at the Kyriakis family, and crucially exploits his vulnerable nephew without a shred of conscience. That behavior profile. That is Andre Demira. Classic, cold calculation and manipulation.
And there's another piece too, isn't there? The absence of Anna.
Yes. The sources point to the very suspicious lack of appearance by Tony's beloved wife, Anna Demira. Anna knows Tony better than anyone. You'd think she'd notice immediately if her husband was suddenly consumed by power, acting this callous, prioritizing corporate conquest over their life together.
And this is where the evil twin history comes in handy for the imposter.
Precisely. The sources remind us Andre has successfully tricked Anna before, led to years of confusion, heartbreak for her. And since everyone currently operates under the assumption that Andre is dead,
the deception is much easier to maintain, even against someone as close as Anna.
It makes it chillingly plausible.
Mm-hmm.
The central, terrifying question becomes, how long can this ruthless Andre keep up the charade before his own corporate success gets completely undermined by his moral failures?
Which brings us right into Section 5, the looming vengeance and revelation. Because Gabi Hernandez, she is absolutely not the type to just accept betrayal quietly, not when the stakes are this high and the insult is this personal.
No way. The sources say she won't take this betrayal lying down. A vendetta is coming, it's imminent, and won't be satisfied with, small consolation prizes.
What might she demand initially?
Well, she might initially demand Tony give her Gabi cheek back, maybe as some kind of payoff. But her real motivation now, it's got to be retribution, reclaiming the power he stole from her. Pure revenge.
Okay, so how does she get that revenge? What's her most likely path?
Her most effective route, logically, involves turning to the very men she just spied on. The Kyriakis brothers.
Philip and Xander.
Exactly. The logic points to her seeking help from Philip Kyriakis, and possibly Xander too. Why? Because she knows they now have a fresh, incredibly deep-seated hatred for Tony DiMera, thanks to his gloating victory over Titan and his insults. Enemy of my enemy.
Makes sense. But that path is incredibly risky for her, isn't it? Because to get their help, she'd have to
confess everything. To gain their trust, especially Philip's, Gabi will almost certainly have to come clean. Admit she spied on them, admit she planted that bug pen, admit that Tony's entire victory was built on her deception.
Wow. That's a huge gamble. She'd have to tell Philip specifically that their relationship, their intimacy, was basically just a tool for corporate espionage.
Exactly, that personal betrayal. It has to be acknowledged if she wants to forge a new, powerful alliance. An alliance built on mutual vengeance against Tony, or Andre.
This high-stakes maneuvering, it just sets the stage for potentially a spectacular final showdown, doesn't it?
It really does. Because the ultimate consequence, the irony of Tony Andre's calculated cruelty, is that his victims, Gabi and Philip, now possibly working together, they might be the ones who accidentally stumble upon the truth.
How?
Well, they'll start digging, looking for leverage against Tony, maybe looking for contract loopholes, evidence of illegal activity related to the DE takeover, anything they can use to hurt him. And doing that, they might just uncover evidence of identity fraud instead. For missing pieces that finally confirm Tony is actually Andre.
So their quest for revenge could inadvertently expose the entire deception.
It's a spectacular possibility, isn't it? A convergence of personal revenge plots and corporate investigation leading to the unmasking of the villain.
So the immediate future of DiMera Enterprises really hinges on this race against time, doesn't it? Will Gabi manage to strike back, expose her betrayer before the rest of Salem catches on that Andre has been manipulating everyone, disguised as the harmless Tony DiMera?
It's exactly that. A race where the fuel is pure revenge, but the finish line is potentially the revelation of this massive conspiracy.
Wow.
One that threatens to undo everything Stefano's wicked twin has just managed to achieve.
Okay, so let's just quickly recap this absolutely extraordinary deep dive. We had Tony, or maybe Andre, developing this sudden, really unnatural obsession with reclaiming DiMera Enterprises. This forced him into an alliance with Gabi Hernandez.
Right. And Gabi, she compromised her personal relationships, used some pretty intense corporate espionage tactics, including planting that infamous bugged ink pen.
The pen.
To get critical audio evidence about that forged Victor Kiriakis letter. Evidence that was then used to basically humiliate and defeat the Kiriakis family, securing DE for Tony.
But literally the moment he won, Tony executed this incredibly cold-hearted betrayal, shredded his contract with Gabi, just tossed her aside.
Yeah, totally discarded her.
And instead installed his vulnerable nephew, Theo Parver, in the CEO job Gabi was promised, which understandably enraged Theo's father, Abe.
And that unforgivable betrayal, that's really the linchpin. The central piece of evidence supporting the theory that the ruthless guy in charge is actually the sinister Andre DiMera. And it sets the stage perfectly for Gabi to seek this really precarious alliance with her former targets, Philip and Xander, to get revenge and just maybe unmask the imposter twin.
So drilling down, what does this all really mean in the larger corporate narrative we're seeing unfold?
Well, I think it powerfully reinforces just how poisonous the quest for power can be, especially within that DiMera structure. When getting corporate dominance overrides everything, moral codes, betraying allies, exploiting your own family members, lying to your spouse,
Alliances just shatter.
they shatter completely, and the cost of doing business becomes astronomical, often ending in legal disaster or personal ruin, or both.
It also highlights how the most calculated plans can backfire, doesn't it? Like Andre's exploitation of Theo.
Oh, absolutely. Exploiting Theo, whose father Abe knows firsthand the darkness of the DiMera world. That feels like the absolute moral low point of this whole corporate victory. It's using someone who's already been deeply wounded by the family.
Exactly. And that leads perfectly into our final provocative thought for you, the listener, to chew on as this complex story continues to unfold. The source material clearly suggests Andre is exploiting Theo. Abe understands the life-altering dangers here better than anyone. So, if, or maybe when Andre's identity is finally revealed, who is actually in greater danger?
Good question.
Is it Gabi? She's actively seeking vengeance. She's a known threat. Maybe Andre anticipates her moves. Or is it the unwilling pawn, Theo, the one who's already suffered a life-altering injury for the DiMera name once and is now being positioned as the unsuspecting figurehead CEO in what might be a criminal enterprise? What price will Theo ultimately pay for the ruthless ambitions of his family? Perhaps his Uncle Andre.
That is a high-stakes question, isn't it? Hanging right over DiMera Enterprises tonight.
Yeah.
Very compelling question.
It really is.
Yeah.
Okay, that's it for this deep dive. We'll catch you next time.